Welcome to the This Is Your Nudge podcast. I am your host, Laura L. Smith. Join me as I chat with the most amazing guests about how we can stop making excuses, step out of someday, and into the promises and goodness God has for us today. This is your nudge. Make sure you're following the show so you don't miss a single episode. Today, I'm chatting with Melissa Ferguson, the author of several best-selling romances like How to Plot a Payback and The Perfect Rom-Com. She lives in Tennessee with her husband and 4 kiddos on a farm. She also has a brand new picture book that challenges all of us to ask what if and why not. Hello, Melissa. Welcome to the This Is Your Nudge podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited, especially as tomorrow is my release day as we're recording this.
Yeah, so fun. I saw that. It's such an exciting time. And it's a release of, I have it here, your adorable new book, Our Friendly Farmhouse, which is so sweet. And as I was reading it, it just made me feel like when my kiddos were little, I could picture them sitting on my lap and cuddled around and just like pointing to the kittens and the ducklings. And are you thrilled with the illustrations?
I actually found this illustrator. They showed me a few, but they tended to be more computer graphic artists. And I really love, hand-drawn illustrations, hand-painted. And so I scoured the internet and then discovered Gretchen on Instagram and through her, I think website probably. And her artwork is just so charming and whimsical. Apparently she grew up on a farm as well. So when I reached out to her, she was really interested. And then we connected her with my publisher.
Oh, that is so sweet and so personal. Yeah, because it makes it just so real. And I think, the illustrations feel like farmhouse illustrations. I mean, they feel very authentic and homey and all the vibes.
And she mailed those beautiful, painted. I mean, there was only one, so you're like, it's coming and you better not get lost in the mail.
Or bent or
or anything. I know. It was a lot of trust there, but I really loved the old school style and she just really nailed it.
Well, it's super sweet. Okay, so tell us, what is your favorite part about farmhouse life?
Oh my goodness. I will say we've been here I think we're coming up on 4 years. And every morning my husband and I have committed, especially in the past, I guess, a year, to having coffee on the porch every morning and just having that time. And I would say that's probably got to be my favorite start to every day, or favorite part of every day, really. Of course, the evenings are sweet, but I mean, I appreciate how much space we have to really utilize how we want. My kids decided that, my son mows dirt bike paths through multiple acres. And so then they're all like, woo! And they're swimsuits and doing that next to the sheep. And, so it's so nice to have lots of space to do a variety of things.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is awesome. And it sounds like when you say that, oh yeah, we're just running next to sheep and my kids are running around, that's how you've always lived, but that's not how you've always lived, right?
Yeah. No, I feel like we've lived in everything from, my husband spent a year on an air mattress in a low-income apartment complex while he was remodeling it for a job, to, apartments, to townhomes, to cul-de-sacs, to the farm that we have now. So we've kind of been all over, and suburban or city or...
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. So tell us, and you talk about it some in your book, about when you first kind of got this nudge from God to leave the life you had to create this whole farmhouse thing with animals and that you hadn't done before. So when did you first get this nudge from God? And did you know it was God nudging you at first, or how did you know it was from him?
So I actually went through seminary, and I have a master's in biblical studies, and I spent some time teaching in the religion department at our university. And I remember one particular book we read in seminary called Courage and Calling. And another one was by Oskinus called The Call. And there were a few things that stuck out to me in both of those books that I really enjoyed, because I remember going through a season of going, how do I know what God is specifically calling me to versus what my desires are versus what my fears or emotions are just kind of directing me to. And I remember it being influential, and I can't even remember the specifics of those books now. I just know that they helped shape my worldview on that, along with, of course, the Bible and prayer. And that's kind of what I think it ultimately came to say was, because I feel like for a long time I thought, is God calling me to learn more about the Bible in seminary, for example, or is that just my desire? How do I know? And I remember asking a professor that, how do I know what God's calling is? How do I know who I should marry? How do I know if this is God or me? So I will say, with regard to the farmhouse itself, long story short, I don't know if I felt, there are times in my life where I've felt very specific, God almost whispering in your ear, kind of like, this is a complete change. I need you to go in this direction. Or even I've had a couple dreams that have been truly guiding my life in my lifetime too. But I would say with regard to the farmhouse, I think that was more a decision that was made by, my husband was a builder, and was wow, this would be great morally for our family. There's nothing in line in the Bible that says do not pursue, one must live on a cul-de-sac,
Right.
or whatever. And he just came home and said, wow, there's an auction sign. This looks amazing. Would you want to go next weekend? What do you think? And it was scary. I think we probably prayed about it and then just didn't feel any obvious no or hold back.
Yeah, one way or the other. Yeah.
And then we just went. And so, in the world of actually moving or building our house, I don't know if we felt that forceful, this must go in this direction, versus us having the interest and feeling no sense of God saying, hold off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really important to share because
Yeah.
there's so many decisions we all make every day.
Right.
And God does care about the details of our lives. It says he's numbered every hair on our head. So he does care about the details of our lives. But some things, like you said, he's just going to stop us if he doesn't want us to do it. Some things he honestly doesn't care if we live in that apartment or that apartment, but sometimes he really does. It's going to make a difference on who we meet or how we, what our finances are. So I think it's really important what you said. Yes, we pray about it. And if we don't feel him stopping us or pushing us, then we just take the next step and see what happens. And you guys took the next step. You went to the auction and then you bid on it and you got it. God could have made it so you didn't get it too, if he was trying to, halt you there.
Right. Yeah. And I think there's value in being open-handed with your life with regard to how you're schooling your children, how many children, whatever, all the decisions that you have in your life. Being prayerful every step of the way, being aware every step of the way, just kind of being sensitive. So that's what we did. And I think we could have had as amazing of a life, honestly, in our suburban cul-de-sac or in our townhome with our children, making incredible memories in different ways. But I do think God blessed the desires of our hearts as we moved with intention towards building this house. And it has been a blessing to us, and it's been truly life-changing, especially because I definitely was more specifically called into writing books. And I know that was a hand on the shoulder kind of push one time. And it is amazing how the two have intertwined and made such a difference in our life. This house then becomes the gateway I get to write children's books, which is a dream of mine and a passion. And then, of course, my adult stories. And now, starting next year, movies with Great American Family. So
exciting.
Excited.
That's amazing. That's awesome. Yeah. And we'll talk more about your books here in a little bit. So everyone just, put a pin on that. Yes. We'll come back to it. So from the initial nudge of your husband coming home and saying there's this auction to actually moving into the farmhouse, how long was that time period?
Oh, goodness. I'm trying to think. COVID happened right at that point. So it was a crazy, and I became pregnant and delivered a baby right at that point as well. So there was a lot going on.
A lot.
But I think it was probably something like 18 months, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you talk about in the book, I love this, that you say that it was glorious, but also a little bit scary. And you kind of keep repeating that. Yes. What were some of the obstacles you faced?
Yeah, no, I definitely remember the night before we decided to go to the auction. Now, my husband also works with his brother who handles auctions more regularly. So he knew what he was doing. So he went with us. And I just remember the night before, it's if we get this land, there's kind of no turning back. Oh my goodness, what was a wonderful romantic idea. It's fun to always pass sheep on the highway and say, oh, look, sheep. But it's another thing to say, oh, look, my sheep,
Right. And how do I take care of them?
Yeah. And so I just remember that being, I loved where we lived in our neighborhood, but I think that's, yeah, we just had to really think it through. So that happened, and it was a little scary the night before, thinking, oh goodness, we're so established. I love my home. I love our little cul-de-sac. I love our neighbors. I love our neighborhood. We love our bike riding nights. But I did have to remind myself that I had to step back and also remember that I do tend to do this. It doesn't matter where I live. I tend to think wherever I live is the best place in the world. Even when it was on the air mattress in the low income housing for a year, even when I would go outside and there were literal crimes committed and windows smashed in, I'd be like, oh, look, we're so close to a great park and we can
Mm,
go. So I do think there are, you can find beautiful things wherever you are. And so I just had
yes.
to keep thinking that and remembering. And also, things can change. I don't think I thought it at the time, but I'm aware now. You can sell your house. Like, if you move
You're not stuck in
overseas,
it
you
forever, right?
can move back
Yeah.
theoretically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's good to know that most things in life, you can also make changes as they come too.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think that's a great reminder. One, that you said that you can see blessings everywhere you are. I think it's a great reminder to all of us that no matter where we're living, God has goodness for us here, right? Psalm 23 says he has goodness and love for us, following us around all of our days. That means whether you're in an apartment or a farmhouse or a suburb, like God has goodness and love for us. And that's a great, great thing to remember. And yeah, also that if we're making decisions and we're not sure and we don't feel, like you said, you didn't feel God saying not to, but you didn't feel him shoving you into the farmhouse, you can sell the farmhouse if you
Yeah.
had to. There's not, you're not stuck in it forever. So as some obstacles were coming, as some doubts were coming along the way, COVID, getting pregnant is a huge blessing. But again, you probably weren't physically able to maybe do all the things that you maybe originally envisioned doing as you organized it. I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
know.
Well, so one thing obstacle-wise that we did was we really were extremely tight on saving money. So the way that we did it was, which is also interesting because I have built up a social media platform. So there are people who sometimes comment from around the world, and they have severely misjudged how much it costs us to build this house, or how much they often think it's much higher. But the reality is, I realized right as we were about to build, I noticed that there's a whole world of people. Well, let me back up. I have a social media account, Instagram or TikTok, because when I went to my first writers conference, they said you have to have one in order to get book sales. So I got on it, and then I couldn't figure out really for a long time how to really make movement until I started looking at house plans online and on social media. And I realized there are all kinds of people who share their home life, their recipes, their houses, and they actually grow their platform. And I thought, wait a second, I wonder if there's a way for us to build this house and me to build up an Instagram account so that companies could help me fund it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
furniture and etc. So that's exactly what ended up happening, which is an incredible blessing that so much.
Yeah.
And so basically we built it and a lot was not done. And as I would get paid, or as brands would come through, or whatever, as book sales, then we would do something else and do something else. So it's really taken 4 years to get the wallpaper, or to put in the washer dryer, or to whatever. There's so
Right.
many things that were empty at first that we slowly had to build up. And now, literally, actually yesterday, Ben and I were looking around and going, it's been 4 years and I think we really love now, finally, like, it's so, we got our first turkeys 2 days ago, and I was like, oh, I just love all the animals we have, and I just feel like we really are getting it. It's taken 4 years, but I feel like we're really like settled into like, this is what I hoped. And it took 4 years, after moving.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's so true. With I think any dream, any goal, anything God calls us into, it's not the overnight sensation, even when it looks like that to other people.
Yes.
That's not how it goes. Things are a process and God's timing is perfect, but sometimes it's slow.
Yes.
And there's a lot of steps and work and preparation that needs to happen to have a farmhouse dream become a reality that looks, picture perfect on the pages, right?
Right. Right. I do feel like I'm starting to get to that point. My editor said something to me, and this is in the adult fiction side. She heard my news about the two of my books becoming movies next year with Great American Family. And she was like, this is incredible that this just fell into your lap. And I remember I was like, fell into my lap. And I think back, I had 8 years of rejections writing, period, from hundreds of people. I had multiple writers' conferences I went to. I've sent so many messages to Great American quietly. The second I got them on the call, I kind of like begged them for a movie. The second they said, well, if you're ever on that call, they said, if you're ever up in New York, come visit us. And I immediately booked, and we left 2 weeks later. I took risk after risk after risk and put in effort with no clear known reward for 12 years now. So there was no drop in laugh. There was God's blessing plus a lot of effort. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah, for
interesting that
sure.
people on the outside think, oh, and they don't know.
Yeah. No, I think you're actually great on your social media about talking about that, rejections, about the time, because I think that's important for everyone to see, because a
Yeah.
lot of times on social media, even if it's not giant movie deals, which most of us are not experiencing in our lives, even if it's just, our kid wins their soccer game. Well, that took years and years of them training and all of the practices you drove them to. And, you don't see the tears when they got, you know, twisted an ankle when they were 7. And all those things aren't posted on social media. And so
Right.
we see other people's wins, and we see their vacations, and we see their, trophies and their kids dressed up for the dance or whatever, but we don't see all of the work that goes into it. And I'm really grateful for you for showing that
Oh.
that's part of the process, actually, our rejections, and sticking with it. And I think it's really important that we all see that and all know that.
Yeah. Well, good, because I'm doing it because I need to fill time. I'm like, what can I say on a Tuesday? I have to post something. Let's talk about how I failed again.
Okay, so 8 years of rejections, girlfriend, that is a lot.
Yeah.
But you said earlier in our conversation that you had a literal push from God to know you were supposed to write. So how did you make that shift from seminary, teaching the Bible, to writing romantic comedies?
Yeah. Talk about a shift, right? So I ended up being a lecturer in New Testament in the Bible and religion department, and I loved it. The reason I went to seminary is because I had so many questions that I felt like I got to a point in college where I ended up minoring in it, but there was so much I wanted to learn. So I actually didn't intend necessarily originally to use it in a career format, even for a short time. So, but I did, and that's what ended up happening. It was great. I mean, but the nudge from God really into writing was I can think of 3 specific instances that's really kind of been kind of foundational in my life. And I think about the Old Testament and the New Testament. When you think about God calling people in the Old Testament, it might be I remember for some time it became easy to think, oh, God's going to call you just like that. That clearly, that obviously, and every day, you know? But the reality is, when you look at the Old Testament, they might have gotten one clear call from God, and that was it, for
Yeah.
their entire lifetime. That was their thing. So, I don't expect God. I would never expect God to tell me clearly anything like that every day or anything. But I do think in my life, God has been really clear on 3 instances with regarding to writing. One happened in a dream when I was 17 years old that I understood, kind of stuck with me, almost like a warning um, about the path I should take. And I only understood it probably 4 years ago with
Uh,
regard to writing. And I finally wow. But I also remember with regard to writing, I had just finished seminary. I had just gotten my degree, and I had planned to move to Knoxville with my husband to start our life there. We had gotten married, but he had gotten a call right after we graduated to go do a construction job up in Ohio. And he was only supposed to be 6 weeks long. So he said, you can come with me and do nothing but hang out or go on to Knoxville. And of course, I said, oh, I want to go with you, right? But the reality of what that meant was staying in an extended stay hotel while he worked for 12 hours a day.
okay, quick timeout. Where in Ohio were you?
I was it started in Reynoldsburg,
Okay,
Columbus.
Columbus area. Yeah. Okay, I'm in Oxford, Ohio, so just had to.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So my seminary was near Cincinnati. Well, it was Lexington, Kentucky. So we lived
Oh,
there,
okay.
and then we moved on up. So he would go to work for 12 hours a day. I wouldn't have a kitchen. I wouldn't have friends. I didn't have any money. I had nothing to do. And I didn't even have I couldn't get a job or even do anything because our plan was to be there so short
You knew
term.
you were just there temporarily.
Yeah. So what was I going to do for 12 hours a day? So I would go on walks. Anyways, long story short, I ended up reading a book series. And I remember after that thinking, I wonder what it would be like. Because I had talked to my friend at the same time who had some questions from my seminary course I was reading about how good God exists in a world of suffering. And I was
Mm.
like, oh, I read this in a philosophy class. It's really interesting. Here's this giant textbook that you can use as a doorstop. Why don't you read it? And so basically 2 weeks later, I came back, asked her, I called her and I said, how was that book? And she was like, I actually read The Hunger Games instead. And that's kind of when I started thinking, I wonder if you can put together meaningful messages in fiction form
Mm.
and just sprinkle in deep and lasting kind of things. And I had nothing but a computer and time. So I opened my computer and immediately fell in love with writing. I mean,
Mm.
which was completely contrary to my personality. I don't like being alone for 12 seconds, let alone 12 hours. And so anyways, basically that job turned into a year long. Then we moved, and because I was lonely, I moved into his office where he was all day, and that's how I ended up on the air mattress for a year.
Okay.
And I would just write for 12 hours a day. And I got an entire year of focused writing in, and then spent another 3 years writing. Then finally tried to go sell that book, failed miserably, then won an award, then good things happened. And, but basically, and then one time I was praying about it about 6 years or 7 years in. And I had a very strong sense of God, pausing me and saying, I have plans for you. I have plans for what you're doing. But also a quiet sense of be very wary, be very careful how you step, and I do think that was the wisest warning looking through the rest of my life. It kind of directed the rest of my time. And I will say, I've worked hard, but I know a billion other authors who work really hard too and have not had, I definitely feel God's hand in the direction that I've gone, and some things that have happened that are way beyond my control, and I feel very grateful for how God has moved that. And also the word of warning kind of in that too, to be careful where I step, because especially in adult romantic comedy, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of possibility and a lot of potential temptation to give up your morals to write for
Yeah,
the
no, for
world.
sure.
And to be consistent in that and deny that over and over is a challenge.
And I'll just say from the other side of it, I love a good romance and I hate the trashy ones. I'll start reading one and I'll literally throw it in the garbage can because I'm like, I don't want to be exposed to that. And I don't even want to put it in a little free library where someone else is going to pick it up and see that because
Yeah.
it's dangerous for us to see those things. I mean, that's not what God intends for us to see or be exposed to. I'm just so, so grateful when I come across good writing that's clean writing. And I know there are so many other people out there. So thank you for sticking to your guns and being obedient to the Lord in that. I mean, it's really a gift to readers because it's actually hard to find the kinds of things that you're writing.
Yeah. And I feel, everyone has a calling in different ways. You could be the serious professor teaching archaeology, like that wonderful professor I had. And I very much realized that God, literally from birth, part of my nature is I'm the one that genuinely loves connecting people, creating parties. I'm the let's have a giant party person and gather a bunch, or a lot of matchmaking. I've done a lot of matchmaking in my life. And at one point I had I remember I was at camp, and one time, literally, the camp director, came to me. This is totally a side point. At this Christian camp when I was a camp counselor, she's like, I heard if you pray for someone, they meet someone and get married. Is this true? Will you pray for me? And I was like, you might have heard that. And that has indeed happened 3 times. But wouldn't that be funny if that's my spiritual gift? But I
That's your spiritual gift
yeah,
matchmaking.
but you know what? Sure enough, I prayed for her and she did. That is exactly what happened. And
Wow.
she gave me her flower bouquet or what, I can't remember what it was, but it was incredible. But all that's to say, I realize God calls us all in different ways. For me, I think my clear calling is to show people that joy comes from the Lord. A life of fun and joy and entertainment and happiness does not have to be connected to sin. He is the creator of it. Let's embrace that. Let's enjoy that. And for childhood too, especially with my children's book. So anyways, all that's to say, I'm aware that that's my calling. It may not be the most serious President of the United States, let's go save the world from a war. But I think it's also everybody has a different, part in the body, and that is what I have.
100%. Yes, we all have different parts. And it's so interesting because I started my career writing Christian fiction and now I write nonfiction. So the Lord really shifted me from that. And I love that you're writing great fiction. And I love that He's calling me to write nonfiction. And I love that He's calling out someone there to be a dog groomer and someone else to be a dentist and someone else to clean people's homes, to give them clean,
Yeah.
fresh spaces to live in. Like, I'm so grateful for the callings He puts on all of our lives because, like you said, we're the body of Christ. That's how it works. Some of us are supposed to be elbows and some of us are supposed to be toes. And when we are the best toe we can be or the best elbow we can be, it just makes everyone flourish more.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
agree.
amazing. And also, every single gal who listens to this is going to be calling you to ask you to pray over them. So we will not give out your phone numbers.
It was an interesting time. I haven't done it in a few years, but I was like, "What in the world?"
Okay, so it sounds like to me from listening to both your farmhouse adventure and starting writing and not just starting writing, but pursuing writing and getting rejections and then going to the next writers conference anyway, and then obviously re-editing your book anyway and booking the trip to New York, just saying, I'm not going to be in New York, but I can be in New York, right? You keep asking yourself the questions that you ask in your book, which are why not and what if. I feel like you just constantly ask yourself that. So, how do you keep telling yourself that when things are hard, when you get that another round of rejections, when it's been 8 years? How do you tell yourself again, why not? What
Yeah.
if I just booked these tickets to New York?
I think, well, I think at some point, and maybe you know this being a writer too, you kind of get bulletproof once you have so many rejections. It is a blessing in disguise to me, thankfully, now that I'm also getting some not just rejections. I do feel like I've become very hard into it. So we know comparison is the thief of joy, and it really is. And that will stop you very quickly. I had an awareness though, I don't know, I can't remember how many years ago, where I was looking. I mean, that's really, I will say that's how I started my social media account that ended up growing and providing all these opportunities for my books and children's books and, getting a house. Really, part of me was I looked at other people and I thought, well, why not me? If this can happen, this incredible for somebody else, it can also happen for me. You just have to have, I mean, you need to be prayerful, you need to be consistent, and you need to have the self-control to endure? And
Yeah.
I think 9 times out of 10, most people just don't have the endurance, right? They tend to, I know a lot of people at this point in my life who come to me and they say, I've always wanted to write a book. I want to tell you about this book. But they, can they
Yeah.
get past, can they do the decade of work of rejections it takes if they really know all the money, time, resources, and rejections it takes? It's a lot, and you
Right.
have to really be called for it. You have to really be passionate about it and stick with it. So I think how do you get to where I think it's a practice of, again, self-control to just not
Yeah.
even let it enter your mind of saying, you say why not, and you don't tell yourself not me, right?
Uh-huh.
And you don't even let that kind of reject any thought that is not from the Lord and is just fear-based.
Yeah, no, that's great. An exercise, a practice of self-control. I think that's really good. I think people want it to be a magic bullet or a vitamin you take, and it's just not. It's the endurance. Yeah, that God does give us the endurance if we continue to go back to Him and trust in Him and spend time in His Word and spend time in prayer. He'll give us the endurance to try again and do it again and ask, what if again?
Yeah. Yeah, and if it's not the right thing too, I feel like also people ask me, gosh, I was at church on Sunday and one of the doctors I know was like, "Oh, I don't know how do you do this? How do you raise these kids? How do you also write?" And I also realized I've also sharpened down. There's a lot I don't have time for.
Right.
I've shut a lot of doors and am very comfortable feeling good morally, ethically, and personally, energy wise, by loving my family well, loving God well, and writing and just having fun too. But these are my things. I don't have time to take up necessarily other things, even though other things might be good. they're not for me if I am pursuing these passions and I feel called towards this.
No, I think that's really important, especially as we live in a FOMO culture that we can be like, well, yeah, but how about this? And how about this? And I don't want to miss that girls' trip. And I don't want to miss that opportunity. And I don't want to miss, like, organizing that event at church. And am I a bad mom if I don't head up VBS or like, there's guilty things and also then like desires that we have to not miss something. And you're right, we just have to stay focused on what the Lord has for us. And that does mean saying no to a lot of things to make our yeses more impactful.
Yeah. Yeah, and then it doesn't drain your energy. I remember sitting on a panel last year with some other authors, and yeah, someone asked this other author, like, "How do you have time to do this? You're also a teacher." And she's like, "Everybody has a hobby. Everyone's going to do something." She's like, "For me, I'm a teacher and I write. That's my hobby." And like, she happens to get paid at her hobby. And I was like, that's an interesting point, If you're not strapped too thin, it's not miraculous. It's not unreal that you're also writing. It's just this is your hobby.
Yeah, no, that's great. So, kind of on the vein of what we've been talking about, what advice do you have for the gal who is in the spot of trying to pursue her God given talents, trying to be the elbow or the shin or whatever part of God's body she is, and trying to literally chase after that dream, whatever that means in her life, but she's hitting some brick walls?
Well, I'm trying to think of a scenario of what that would look like because I think, immediately what came to mind are a couple friends of mine, and I'm going to flesh this out loud as I'm talking with you.
Sure, sure, sure.
But, I'm always fascinated. I have two other friends who stay home, they raise their kids, and they are so obviously, they love to make food and serve other people with it. They love to give meals all the time to random people. And it's a beautiful thing. It is not my thing. And there is a temptation there for me also, side point, to sit there and go, why isn't this my thing? I need to push myself to also do this. This is also the right thing. Of course, I can do this too. And I think I've really come over the years also to be careful to say, this is how much time I have to fully give to my family before
Yeah.
or fully give to my writing that I believe God has called me to before I am drained and I don't have time for that. So I need to respect that and just love that for them, but not try to be them, right? Or not
Yes.
guilt myself because of their doing such wonderful work. But as far as what brick walls would look like for them, they're not going to face any brick walls. There's a lot of need there and they can always do it, right?
Uh-huh.
So I don't know if you're speaking, it sounds more to me like you're speaking obviously right in the writing world or career world. If you feel called to open this incredible, let's say it's a faith-based cupcake factory or a shop or something,
Love it. Yeah.
you're gonna reach some obvious roadblocks that are it's gonna be much more obvious to do that or to be in politics or to even finish a degree and then try and find the demands for that degree and where do you go. So you're going to face obvious, I guess, problems in that. I mean, I don't think there's any, like you said, there's no secret recipe. It's just you will face it, but every time consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds. Like
Yes.
you will grow stronger, right? Through each rejection, it's not like God hasn't forgotten you. He hasn't forgotten you. You're alive. And so even if you weren't alive on this earth, he hasn't forgotten you, right?
Exactly.
So I think you just take the next step. That door shuts, just keep going. I think so many people in my world of content creation and book writing, they face rejection and they quit because they're so paralyzed by other people's opinions of them. And I think it's really important to remember that no one's thinking about you more than likely, right? They're thinking
Right.
about themselves. And if they are thinking about you, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. So you just focus on you and focus on God and things get a lot easier. You know what I mean?
All right, Melissa, I ask every guest on this show two questions. One is if you could nudge listeners to do something this week, what would you nudge them to do?
Well, I would say in light of your last question for what you just said, if someone's facing this, everything becomes simpler. The last thing we tend to do, but the way it instantly becomes simpler is to, whether you like it or not, go spend 10 minutes reading your Bible or a devotional and praying. And even if it's not specific, you're not doing a topical search, I think the repetition of those 10 minutes will ground you and remind you and get your mind back in line and make it easier without you even trying, right? To get back on your feet. So I would recommend I would recommend that to anyone who's struggling or not.
Amen, sister. Yeah, amen. Anyway, 10 minutes with the Lord every day is going to change your life.
It will. Yeah.
Guaranteed. We didn't
Yeah.
have any other silver bullets for you today. We didn't have any magic spells, but 10 minutes with the Lord every day, I promise you will guarantee will change your life.
Yeah.
100%. Okay. So that's what you would nudge other people to do. How do you feel God nudging you this week? Or what is something he might be nudging you to do this week?
Goodness. I mean, I could take that advice and give it to myself, just spin it around for myself because the same exact, I mean, it is very easy for me to get up and, oh, I got to go do the things. I got to go make the pot roast. I got to put the laundry in. I'm going to go make the coffee. I'm going to go sit on the porch and then I'm going to do this. And then, oh, where's the time? And then before I know it, anxiety's coming over my head and I don't know where it came from and, whatever. So, I mean, I would say that's probably going to be the nudge for me too.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. Plus 4 little kids tugging on you. Like we need that
Right.
time with the Lord to refocus, recenter, recalibrate, all of it.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay. I will put all the links in the show notes, but Melissa, just so audio learners can hear, can you just remind us here where they can find you, your social media, your website?
Yeah. So on Instagram, my children's book is the same as my social. It's called ROUR, Friendly Farmhouse. And then my website with my newsletter, I put out a newsletter every now and again when the mood strikes, is melissaferguson.com.
Amazing. Okay, great. Thank you so much for being on. You are delightful, and I appreciate all of your just honesty and so many blessings on our Friendly Farmhouse releases tomorrow when we're recording it, but it will be out in the world when this airs, so everyone can just go and get it immediately and enjoy it with your families. Thank you so much for being on and for nudging us to ask what if.
Thanks for having me.
What an incredible conversation with Melissa Ferguson. I loved that we didn't just chat about her adorable picture book, but we also talked about courage and endurance and avoiding comparison, that the best way to live in that space is by spending time with Jesus every day. To find more about Melissa and order her new picture book, I've put all her links for you in the show notes. Make sure you're subscribing to the This Is Your Nudge podcast so you won't miss the next awesome episode. And for more ways to step into the dreams and ideas God places on your heart, make sure to follow me on Instagram at Laura Smith Author. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review on whatever platform you're listening. Your reviews really help others find this content. Praying for you as you intentionally step into whatever God has for you this week, and that you remember that mighty Jesus loves you and will give you everything you need.